one of the pioneers in prefabricated modular housing, much lower carbon in the construction.
We've got some major announcements here today. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, Mark Carney, once again at his Edmonton retreat. It has become public knowledge that there is no pipelines on the list of major projects. Not a surprise. Considering is Alberta, I can only guess how Albertans are going to take that. He also gives a speech where he essentially is laughing during talking about this crisis in Canada, completely tone deaf, detached from reality. Mr. Rich Banker doesn't have a clue of public optics. He also confirms something I've been beating the drum of here for a while. Let's jump into this. Got this one here. Bank of Canada just changed its website motto. This is funny. We are Canada's central bank. We work to preserve the value of money by keeping inflation low and stable, 2.8%. And what is it now? More than a bank, we are the Central Bank of Canada. Yeah, thanks, Tim. Thanks for nothing. We got this one here. We got a bunch of people outside the courthouse in St. Catharines. Why are they here? Remember this guy who broke into a little girl's bedroom and then used a screwdriver and did all sorts of disgusting things? These people of St. Catharines are outside protesting this guy outside the courthouse. And this gets even crazier. So I can't play any more of that, but they keep chanting this here, which you can see on the screen, and then give him to us, give him to us. This is, wow, Canadian citizens standing up for what we should be doing in this country, and that's locking away scum like this guy. This guy should never see the light of day ever again. He's disgusting. This is a monster. Elected judges, accountable judges. Average Joe and Joanne are getting sick and tired of this garbage. That is what this is. The people have had enough of the crime in this country. Moving ahead, we've got this clip here from Ryan Jasperson radio show. Listen to what Mark Carney says here. I've been beating this drum for a while now. There's people in the comments saying that I was wrong. Same thing with back when I said Mark Carney heavily invested in America. People said I was wrong. Turns out Mark Carney has 91% of his investments in America. Check this out.
Well, look, we're very focused on what we're calling climate competitiveness. In other words, making sure that whether it's Canadian oil and gas, whether it's Canadian automakers, whether it's Canadian electricity, Canadian artificial intelligence, that it's being produced in a way that's competitive as possible. And part of that is moving to lower carbon. So one of the attractions, we're here in Edmonton. Let's talk about a few things in Alberta, if you don't mind. The Pathways Project, which is carbon capture. It's potentially transformative for helping reinforce what the oil sand producers have been doing, which is to get their emissions down. Now it can take a step change for that.
Before Mark Carney gets to the juiciest bit here, let's just break down Pathways Project, or officially it's called the Pathways Alliance. Pathways Carbon Capture Project is not viable, expert warns. New report from CCS proposal is a subsidy-dependent financial risk with limited revenue potential. Pathways Alliance flagship carbon capture and storage project is not financially feasible without massive and consistent subsidies. This is like someone going to buy a Lamborghini and payments are going to be $2,000 a month, and then the government steps in and says, you know what, how about you just pay $10 a month and we'll pay $1,990 a month. It's not sustainable. You couldn't afford the car in the first place. That's exactly what the Pathways Project is. If it takes subsidies to run it, then it's not something we should be doing. These should be self-sustaining things that make money on their own. We need to draw business into Canada and it all be self-sufficient. The government can't subsidize everything. This is according to the most recent analysis of the venture conducted by the Institute of Energy Economics and Financial Analysis. So I should note, this is from February 26, 2025, just a few months ago. They identified multiple financial challenges. Funding of the CCS is a costly gamble that may not yield tangible returns on Canada's journey towards achieving net zero emissions. This is another grift, just like the EV battery companies, EV car companies, all that stuff that they keep dumping our money in. It's just another risky grift with no payoff for taxpayers. We've had enough of paying for their stupid projects. Release the SDTC documents. People need to go to jail. Taxpayers should not be getting ripped off on a daily basis. So it goes on to talk about safety risks here, and it says, whether storing such a large amount of CO2 is safe is vitally important, but an unanswered question. The release of an estimated 100,000 to 300,000 tons of CO2 at Lake Nyos, Cameroon in 1986 ended about 1,700 people and 3,500 livestock animals. The rupture of the CO2 pipeline near Satanaria, Mississippi in 2020 resulted in dozens of hospitalizations, the town's evacuation, and a chaotic emergency response that underlined the public's unfamiliarity with large-scale carbon dioxide poisoning. This is some dangerous stuff. Storing this stuff, and if it ruptures, it'll take out the whole community. community. So back to Mark Carney here. Listen to what he brings up next.
We're seeing it in lower carbon LNG. Projects that are building out on that. We're seeing it in nuclear. We're seeing it in a variety of areas that we're supporting. So look, there's a broad range of programs that are needed to make us carbon competitive. I'll give you one last one, which is a big one. We're going to be making some announcements next week around how we're going to accelerate home building in this country, how we're going to leverage, and we're in Alberta, I'm going to leverage Alberta technology. ATCO, one of the pioneers in prefabricated modular housing, much lower carbon in the construction, much lower carbon and much cheaper to live in. We want to scale that. We want to scale that technology by the tens of thousands, and we're going to move that forward.
He's going to move that forward. ATCO. Now, if you're an avid watcher of the channel, you already know where I'm going on the board here. Don Farrell sat on the board of ATCO. Mark Carney is invested in BlackRock Funding Inc. And BlackRock owns $146 million of ATCO. Mark Carney, as I already said in this video here, brought in Dawn Farrell because of her experience at ATCO. She was most likely vetted by these two guys during this TransAlta deal, and now he's bringing her in at a price tag of upwards of $677,000 per year salary. And he just said it right out of his own mouth. They're going to be working with ATCO modular housing. I could smell this from a mile away. I'm just surprised that Mark Carney said it himself on Ryan Jasperson's show. Moving ahead to Mark Carney's press conference. This is tone deaf. This is insulting. It's rude. He cracks some jokes in here thinking it's going to be funny. It is just an awful speech.
This room didn't take the summer off, so it's not really back to school, but September always has that feel. And let's face it, we are in a crisis. We are in a crisis. The global trading system has been upended. Supply chains have been destroyed. McDavid is unsigned. This is not a transition. This is a rupture. As in times like these, you have to draw back in. Remember what you have. Draisaitl, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins. We got to draw on those strengths. We got to draw on those values. And Connor, if there's anything that we can do in the upcoming budget, we're spending less, we're going to invest more so we can bring that cup back to Canada.
This is all a joke to him. This is not funny. This is not something you can joke about when you're talking about the country rupturing. We're in a crisis, a financial crisis. People have lost their jobs and you're joking about Connor McDavid. It's not signing a new contract yet. If you don't follow hockey, he was naming other Edmonton Oilers there, Draisaitl, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins. This is not funny. This is not a place to make a joke. He's just having a laugh. I mean, this guy's worth so many millions of dollars. He's made millions of dollars since becoming prime minister. Life is on easy mode for Mark Carney. But if you're a single mother with kids, this isn't so funny. If you're a struggling young couple, a father that's having to carry the burden of the family, this is not funny. This guy couldn't pick a worse time to crack some jokes. And listen to these buffoons clapping like a bunch of brainwashed seals. That's not the only time he made this joke too. He doesn't get it.
And as I said, I launched my leadership campaign back in January. And it was a time when the crisis was not as obvious. We thought McDavid was going to be re-signed quickly. We would already have the cup by now. But the crisis facing our country, in all seriousness, was just coming into perspective, you think, back at the start of January. And many didn't foresee the scale of the changes that would be required in response to this crisis.
This guy ran his entire campaign on how this is the greatest crisis to ever face Canada, and now he's saying, it wasn't really a big crisis back then. Which one is it? Is Canada exporting semiconductors to America? Are we the top supplier? This guy spouts so many lies. He'll say whatever it takes just to sway the public opinion. He doesn't care if it's lie after lie. Bringing up McDavid again, this guy doesn't care about Canadians. He doesn't have the heartbeat of Canadians. He doesn't understand what everyday Canadians are going through. This is deplorable. These jokes are not funny. It's not funny that Canadians can't afford to live because of their policies. With this retreat that they're wasting our money on, we got Mackenzie Gray from Global here posting this. At the start of the LPC caucus meeting, Prime Minister is set to announce the first batch of major nation building infrastructure projects will be revealed tomorrow, and Build Canada Homes will be launched next week. So that's when he'll be making that ATCO announcement. No new pipelines, but I'm sure Brookfield will do very well. Brookfield should be banned from these government incentives, Carney. Should have nothing nothing to do with deciding on these projects. So I will bring you the list tomorrow when they announce it, but what we do know is there will be no pipelines. They said it right on the CBC today.
Rafi, let me ask you about what we're hearing from our colleagues at Radio-Canada. The government is preparing to announce its first national interest projects. Our colleagues at Radio-Canada have learned that there are no oil pipelines included on that list for now. Didn't make the short list. Can you explain the thinking behind that?
Yeah, interesting timing as they gather here in Alberta, right? But evidently there is no proponent for the project. So Liberal sources told Radio-Canada, well, if nobody's sticking their hand up to build the thing, we can't approve it right now. They're insisting.
This is ridiculous. They know what they're doing. They made it so no one would want to invest in Canada. Now they're saying no one wants to invest here in pipelines, so I guess we won't do one. Yeah, you guys made it so no one wants to invest here.
Though that this is, temporary. An oil pipeline could make its way onto the list in the future. So could a gas pipeline, for instance. And no doubt Carney will be having words with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith about this decision. They're set to meet later this evening. Smith, of course, is a huge proponent of pipelines. She's been asking the Liberals to get rid of Bill C-69, which is their environmental impact assessment legislation, which she says nixes the chances of any pipeline ever being built. The two leaders will meet at 5:30 Mountain Time this evening. They don't have any public availability scheduled after that meeting, so it will be at least one sleep until we hear from how that meeting went down and what they spoke about.
This is a disgrace. They're causing financial ruin in our country on purpose. The countries of the world who wish they had oil and gas would be producing it because that's what makes countries rich. Energy. Instead, they want to do the Pathways project, which will very likely go broke, will require incentives to even run it. Why not you just plant some trees instead of having this big CO2 toxic cloud being stored away that could potentially wipe out an entire town? We knew it from day one. Our country isn't governed by serious people. Oh, they're serious. They're serious about making money for themselves. They're not serious about taking care of us, though. Carney stalling squarely in the pockets of the Liberals. We got Brian Lilly posting this. This will be hugely detrimental for national unity. I don't really think the people in Eastern and Central Canada understand what is happening in the West. I'm a born and raised Albertan boy. While I live among the many nutcases here in British Columbia, this is huge news in Alberta. No pipeline on the list for national projects. You're going to see the Alberta separatist movement flare up even more now. Why would any private sector company go to the trouble of proposing a new pipeline when the former Liberal government has passed at least 3 laws prohibiting new pipelines, capping emissions, and limiting access to deep water for market exports? This Liberal government may appear to be less hostile towards fossil fuel, but no private sector companies is going to risk millions of dollars to try to obtain approval for a pipeline given the laws that are on the book. This sums it up. There's no way that they're going to even try to get a pipeline out to Prince Rupert when there's a deep water tanker ban, emissions cap. There's just no way. They'll just go to America where they'll make more money. Next up, we got Melanie Joly. She was speaking at some event here, and she's coming out swinging here with her message. It's clear what her priorities in life are.
When you said follow the targets, did you mean the 2030, 35 targets or?
Well, the targets that we've set to ourselves. And I think it's important that we understand what we're able to do right now, because when we set these targets at the time, President Trump had not been elected. The IRA was in place, which is the Inflation Reduction Act, and we also were not facing an existential threat to our economy. So we're the government that believes in climate
Yes, we were. The existential threat to our economy is the Liberal government.
change and believes that we need to counter it. And that's why Eric has just launched the environmental caucus within our government, within the Liberal caucus. And at the same time, we need to make sure that we're able to address the economic impacts of tariffs.
Who looks to these people for leadership? I can't accept it. They can't blame Harper anymore. Another clip from the same event here. Melanie Joly, the world is moving towards EVs. Also Melanie Joly, the people will only buy EVs if subsidized.
Does Canada remain committed to the greenhouse gas emission targets that it's set for 2030 and 2035?
We want to make sure that we find ways to support our objective and, of course, to be net zero by 2050. The goal for 2026 was to have 20% of all electric vehicles being sold in Canada to be EVs. And at the end of last year, we were at 19%. What happened is we decided to not follow up with our own subsidies back in the spring. And by Canada having not offering subsidies, the percentage of electric vehicles being sold in Canada right now is at around 8%. We want to build more EVs in Canada because we know the world is going there. So rather than scrapping the entire EV mandates, rather doing like the Conservative wants us to do, which is to let go all our objectives to counter impacts of climate change, we need to make sure we're doing both.
Those companies have gone bankrupt. The Conservatives had nothing to do with that. She doesn't know how to take a hint. I mean, I've got them up on the board here. All the yellow ones here have updates. $500 million to GM Ingersoll, pause production, laying off 1,200 workers. $295 million Ford EV, $1.8 billion EV plant scrapped. $100 million Line Electric, bankrupt. $15 billion EV Honda, on hold for 2 years due to no EV demand. Stellantis EV, $5 billion, pause Dodge Charger EV, pause $1.3 billion Compass EV. $7 billion for Northvolt EV, bankrupt. Halted after Northvolt Sweden went bankrupt. North American branch on the brink of bankruptcy. So we can update this one. This is officially bankrupt now. $20 billion Volkswagen canceled ID7 electric sedan Canadian production. This is not the utopia they think it is, yet they still push it. And on the left side here, you can see all the different things they've implemented in Canada to get here. They're so desperate to force this down our throats. Canadians are barfing it back up and saying, nope, not swallowing that. Mark Carney so desperately wants the value in his Stripe shares to explode. With all that talk of Melanie Jolie and all that, we've got global warming linked to consumption of sugary drinks, ice cream, in new research. This is getting pretty desperate, guys. So this article just goes on to say, with there being more warm weather, more people are eating more ice cream and drinking more sugary drinks, thus it'll lead to obesity. Like, come on. Just so desperate. We got Mario posting this one, which I can't read on the channel, but you can read it on the screen if you'd like. This is the state of Canada when you're finding, this kind of stuff.